Okay, welcome to the Urantia book. I've been on a little bit of a hiatus here. I apologize about that, but I've actually been working towards creating a streaming setup because I'm going to be combining Urantia book with my love for art. It is going to be streaming on Twitch and then eventually YouTube, but right now I have it set up, so go to Twitch TV and then look up Urantia Art Club and follow that. I'm going to be streaming every single day with book and art. So check that out. Let's look at page 445. Hope everybody's doing well out there. We're going to get back into our regular Urantia book readings. Hope you've been checking out the book in the meantime. This is Mortals of Time and Space under the Ascending Sons of God. We're going to read through this. It's a couple pages, but it does typical Urantia book where it hits you with a really insightful little nugget. I mean, it all is insightful, but some parts are especially searing for me, at least at my phase of spiritual growth or understanding. This book, if you're new to it, it's to be a lifelong study. So some things you might not understand on the first run through, but there'll be enough of it that you're just totally blown away, and you will confirm that this book is what it says it is, the fifth epochal revelation, if you read it with an open mind. So let's check this out. Mortals of Time and Space. Mortals represent the last link in the chain of those beings who are called sons of God. So mortals are us. We're the lowest rung on the ladder here, folks. Animals are not sons of God. Animals are more, their minds are more mechanistic. They're not teachable. They're good. In fact, if you look at the history of the planet and you look at something like a cat or a lion or whatever, it's going to do the same thing as it's done for, millions of years, just like how humans are going to, opposed to how humans are going to do more and more, learn more about their environment, their science, and so forth and so on. So we're the last link in this vast chain. Mortals connotes something that would be temporary. It seems like that we would have an ending. But as you'll go on to see, that's not the case here. Okay? Potentially we have an ending. That's up to us if we choose to have an ending or not. Okay. The personal touch of the original eternal Son passes down through a series of decreasingly divine and increasingly human personalizations until there arrives a being much like yourselves, one you can see, hear, and touch. That was our Jesus of Nazareth. But that is not the originally eternal Son. It's a son of the Son. And then you are made spiritually aware of the great truth which your faith may grasp. Sonship with the eternal God! Exclamation point. Likewise does the original and infinite Spirit, by a long series of decreasingly divine and increasingly human orders, draw nearer and nearer to the struggling creatures of the realms, reaching the limit of expression in the angels, than whom you were created but a little lower, who personally guard and guide you in the life journey of the mortal career of time. We wouldn't be able to recognize these beings if we were to stand in front of them, just like an animal wouldn't be able to recognize, an ant wouldn't be able to recognize the stock market and this and that. It'd barely be able to recognize that there was a human there, let alone the activities of that human and so forth. So there's a downstepping to help us with our ascension. When we ascend to that level, we become more spiritualized and increase in our senses and spiritual understanding. Then we could stand in the presence of these original gods. They're one, even though they're, the Trinity. Okay? Likewise, does the original and infinite Spirit, by a long blah, 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 we got that. God the Father cannot thus downstep himself to make such near personal contact with the almost limitless number of ascending creatures throughout the universe of universes. But the Father is not deprived of personal contact with his lowly creatures. You are not thus without the divine presence. Although God the Father cannot be with you by direct personality manifestation, he is in you and of you in the identity of the indwelling thought adjusters. That's a huge, important aspect of this book. It's teaching us our spirit is actually a fragment of God called the thought adjuster. It's a unique entity that we receive. So there's not downstepping as a way there's many steps on the ladder. No, we get a direct fragment of God the Father. the divine monitors. Thus the Father, who is the farthest from you in personality and spirit, draw the nearest to you in the personality circuit and in the spirit touch of intercommunion with the very souls of his mortal sons. So it's an interesting paradox how the universe is set up that way, that the Father is dwelt within us, but the second and third persons of the Trinity have to have their angelic sort of hosts to make contact with us. Of intercommunion with the very souls of his mortal sons and daughters. Spirit identification constitutes the secret of personal survival and determines this destiny of spiritual ascendance. See, there it is. Survival through spirit identification. And that, just remember that as you're going through your daily life and you're thinking that this might be such an important decision that you're making about what house you're going to buy or what job you're going to get and so forth. They're really not related to your personality survival. It's that spirit identification. The destiny of spiritual ascension. And since the thought adjuster are the only spirits of fusion potential to be identified with man during the life in the flesh, the mortals in time and space are primarily classified in accordance with their relation to these divine gifts, the indwelling mystery monitors. So we're unique in that aspect. The angels don't have that. Since they're already a personalization of the second and third persons of the Trinity, they don't have that indwelling mystery monitor. Capitalized, that's the thought adjuster. This classification is as follows. 1. Mortals of the transient or experiential adjuster sojourn. Okay, that would be us. Mortals of the non-adjuster fusion types. There's other different types, okay? We're talking vast universe here, folks. All these different potentials and actuals and things like that. It's got to all be expressed. If it makes sense, if there's a reason for it and so forth, then it's going to be out there. Just like how we were saying how that God is both the Eastern view and the Western view. If you're Buddhist, why would you take away the fact that God is a personality? It almost is counter to your understanding that God is everything. Jesus, if he's everything, then he must be a father personality also. And the same thing with Christianity. You can't just centralize and localize that and not say that it's all around you and present in the very moment, right here and right now, and that you have to ascend to a certain, thing. Like Jesus said, the domain of heaven lies within, which is a very Zen and Eastern sort of statement. It's not saying it lies over there, it lies in this church, or with this pope, or so forth. Series 1, mortals of the transient or experiential adjuster sojourn. This series designation is temporary for any evolving planet, being used during the early stages of all inhabited worlds except those of the second series. Mortals of the Series 1 inhabit the worlds of space during the earlier epochs of the evolution of mankind and embrace the most primitive types of human minds. On many worlds, like pre-Adamic Urantia, great numbers of the higher and more advanced types of primitive men acquire survival capacity but fail to attain adjuster fusion. Oh, okay. So, okay, all right. So never mind. That's not us. The transient, okay, we're 3 mortals of the adjusted fusion potential, okay? These beings, okay, this transient being would be like your caveman or something, okay? He couldn't handle an adjuster. Okay, let's read on. Advanced types of primitive men acquire survival capacity but fail to attain adjuster fusion for ages upon ages before man's ascent to the level of higher spiritual volition. The adjusters occupy the minds of these struggling creatures during their short lives in the flesh, and the moment such will creatures are indwelt by adjusters, the group guardian angels begin to function. While these mortals of the first series do not have personal guardians, they do have group custodians. An experiential adjuster remains with a primitive human being throughout his entire lifetime in the flesh. The adjusters contribute much to the advancement of the primitive men, but are unable to form eternal unions with such mortals. In fact, I wouldn't even say that this isn't happening right now, because we could have primitive beings on this planet right now because of our backward state, our totality of our backwards primitive planetary evolution, this transient ministry of the adjusters accomplished two things. First, they gained valuable and actual experience in the nature and working of the evolutionary intellect, an experience which will be invaluable in connection with the later contact on other worlds with beings of higher development. Second, the transient sojourn of the adjuster contributes much toward preparing their mortal subjects for possible subsequent spirit fusion. All God-seeking souls of this type achieve eternal life through the spiritual embrace of the mother spirit of the local universe, thus becoming ascending mortals of the local universe regime. So they fuse they become mortal in a different way. Now, the other interesting thing about this blurb is that it shows that these adjusters will gain experience, and then they might inhabit somebody like you. For instance, you might not have a virgin adjuster. Your adjuster might have inhabited a caveman before. But then that caveman fuses with, you're not that caveman, so it's not reincarnation. That caveman is still existing out there. He fused, if he wanted to, with the universal mother spirit. That's the third person of the Trinity. And so it's great because it's saying, hey, you're not just like an animal or whatever that just, this is your first go around. There could be more to you to that. So it's tipping its hat to the fact that we have a spiritual, I don't know what you would call it, but it's not reincarnation. Okay, maybe a spiritual experience or something like that. I don't know. Experienced adjuster. All right, anyways. Second, the transient sojourner and the adjuster contributes. Okay, so they will, many persons from the pre-Adamic Urantia were thus advanced to the mansion worlds of Satania. So those cavemen, let them have their life. You don't have to be them. You don't have to be the 30 generations of caveman and then now you're you. Let them carry on and continue. And you can carry on and continue. The universe is big enough to harbor all of us. The gods who ordained that mortal man should climb to the higher levels of spiritual intelligence through long ages of evolutionary trials and tribulations take note of his status and needs at every single stage of the ascent, and are always they divinely fair and just, even charmingly merciful in the final judgments of these struggling mortals of the early days of the evolving races. So they're aware. It's not just like a machine or something that's just going through its motions. There's a true ministry. Series 2, Mortals of the Non-Adjuster Fusion Type, are specialized types of humans who are not able to effect eternal union with their indwelling adjusters. Type classification among the 1, 2, and 3 brain races is not a factor in the fusion. We're 2-brained because we have the 2 hemispheres, but they say that there's 3 out there. All such mortals are akin. These adjuster fusion types are wholly different and markedly modified order of will creatures. Many of the non-breathers belong to this series, and there are numerous other groups who do not ordinarily fuse with adjusters. Non-breathers would be on a planet where there's not a favorable thing. But remember, we're talking about this eternity of plentifulness. So there's ways around different things to just make everything more rich and have more. Imagine if the planet only had 2 animals on it. You'd want there to be all these different sorts of different things that breathe underwater, that non-breathers, okay, on other planets. Like series number 1, each member of this group enjoys the ministry of a single adjuster during a lifetime in the flesh. During temporal life, these adjusters do everything for their subject of temporary indwelling that is done on other worlds where the mortals are of fusion potential. The mortals of the second series are often indwelt by virgin adjusters, but the higher human types are often in liaison with the masterful and experienced monitors. In the ascendant plan for upstepping the animal origin creatures, these beings enjoy the same devoted service of the sons of God, and as is extended to the Urantia types of mortals. Seraphic cooperation with adjusters on the non-fusion planets is just as fully provided as on worlds of fusion potential. The guardians of destiny minister on such spheres just as on Urantia, and similarly function at the time of mortal survival, at which time the surviving soul becomes spirit fused. So they actually are able to live on. These beings, mortals, okay? They're still mortals. They're always considered mortals. When you encounter these modified mortal races, even when you become mortal, connotes, your origin, all right? But your destiny is to be a finaliter, live on forever. You attain immortality when you fuse. At this time of fusing, that's when you live on. You're no longer in flux. You're no longer capable of going so far astray that you will, sin and that sort of thing. You've already gone through that phase of your testing. So if you fuse, there's no accidents there. If you fuse, you're definitely ready for it. When you encounter these modified mortal types in the mansion worlds, you will find no difficulty in communicating with them. There they speak the same system language, but by a modified technique. These beings are identical with your order of creature life in spirit and personality manifestation, differing only in certain physical features, in the fact that they are non-fusible with thought adjusters. As to just why this type of creature is never able to fuse with the adjusters, great question of the Universal Father, I am unable to say. And who is this I? This is a mighty messenger. Okay, mighty messengers are beings that started out like us and then eventually did fuse. So this being took it the whole way. So they are, as much of a god as one can attain. That's what this being is, and they still don't know. So don't even bother considering what it is. It's just how it has to be. But some of us inclined to the belief that the life carriers, in their efforts to formulate beings capable of maintaining existence in an unusual planetary environment, are confronted with the necessity of making such radical modifications in the universe plan of intelligent will creatures that it becomes inherently impossible to bring about permanent union with the adjusters. Often have we asked, is this an intended or unintended part of the ascension plan? But we have not found the answer. Perhaps it's almost like, I don't know. I wouldn't think that something of God's creation would be unintended, that there'd be some, it's obviously a positive thing because there's more beings that can enjoy life. Series 3, Mortals of the Adjuster Fusion Potential. All father-fused mortals are of animal origin, just like the Urantia racens. They embrace mortals of the one-brained, two-brained, and three-brained types of adjuster fusion potential. Urantians are the intermediate or two-brained type, being in many ways humanly superior to the one-brain groups. Remember, humanly superior. And superior doesn't mean better, so throw that away. When you see that superior thing, that doesn't mean that the one-brains are not as good or we're better than them. Our minds just function in a more superior way, just like a computer of nowadays would be superior to an old classic one in the mind status, okay, humanly. But spiritually, they're all of, if they choose to be, of the same family, and there's nobody's better or worse in that family. But definitely limited in comparison with the three-brained. Okay, so we have beings that are just much more smart than us. These three types of physical brain endowment are not factors in adjuster bestowal. See, that's the spiritual economy, not the mind. Even though there are certain mind requirements that you do need to have in order to have an adjuster, because they don't give it to a rock and they don't give it to a newt and a worm and this and that. In seraphic service or in any other phase of spirit ministry, the intellectual and spiritual differential between the three brain types characterizes individuals who are otherwise quite alike in mind endowment and spiritual potential, being the greatest in temporal life, intending to diminish as the mansion worlds are traversed one by one, okay? Because you're coming more spiritual, so there's not going to be as much of a gulf. From the system headquarters on the progression of these three types is the same in their eventually paradise destiny. Their eventual paradise destiny is identical. So this mighty messenger could have been a three-typed guy, or he could have girl, or he could have been a one-typed. And you wouldn't know because they're just as brilliant. The Unnumbered series. These narratives cannot possibly embrace all the fascinating variations in the evolutionary world. You know that every 10th world is a decimal or experiential planet, which ours is, but you know nothing of the other variables that punctuate the processional of the evolutionary spheres. There are differences too numerous to narrate even between the revealed orders of living creatures as between planets of the same group. But this presentation makes clear the essential differences in relation to the ascension career. And as the ascension career is the most important factor in any consideration, let's go back to that. And the ascension career is the most important factor in any consideration of the mortals of time and space. So keep that in mind. Your ascension career, what you choose to do, how you choose to ascend, all these different factors are the most important. It's not really it's not saying, and the origin on which planet you were born from is the most important type of thing. And by the way, your racial identity is the most important. Your sex is the most important thing. No, it's not. Your ascension career. So if we can attune our mind to that, then we'll be attuning towards reality, and it's faith. It might be faith at first, right now, but if you read this full book, or you've had your own personal spiritual experiences or whatever, but definitely if you read this book, it will be so much more concrete in your mind. It's the best proof that somebody could ask for and say, hey, I want real hardcore scientific proof of something called a God. You can't really give anybody proof because it has to be an inner experience. This is the closest that you can do. And the thing is you would have to read it all with all 2,000. Oh, there's my old bookmark. I made a new bookmark today. Let me get to all 2,000 pages with an open mind, and then you say, man, that is not only it. I was talking about this with a friend the other day. From an anthropological standpoint, looking at man's religions, you would think that a spiritual book, wouldn't be that insightful about going through all the different religions and talking about their strengths and weaknesses. But it's like a genius of anthropology wrote these papers, and we'll look at those next. One of them is called Problems of Institutional Religions. I forget what the actual. All right, anyways, I revealed it, but here it is. As to the chances of mortal survival, this is that nugget that I was talking about, if you made it this far. Let it be made forever clear. All souls of every possible phase of mortal existence will survive, provided they manifest willingness to cooperate with their indwelling adjusters and exhibit a desire to find God and to attain divine perfection, even though these desires be but the first faint flickers of the primitive comprehension of that, quote, true light which lights every man who comes into the world. See that? How important and uplifting that is, people. It's just, it breaks every single shackle that somebody could possibly have towards what they think ascension is about. Because in our human world, you would have to have a degree, you would have to, be born in the right culture, that you would have these environments and opportunities afforded to you. But not so in the spiritual economy, which is the real true economy. Let's look at it one more time. As to the chance, let's break it down too as we read it. As to the chances of mortal survival. So what are the chances? Hey, what are the chances that Jewish guy and that Christian guy go? Jeez. One would say the other is going to hell, right? Both of them say the other is going to hell. What are the chances that everybody's right that has a faint flicker? Well, they're fucking 100%. Excuse the language. Let it be made forever clear. All souls of every possible phase, one brain, two brain, non-breather, you're all mortals, right? Us. Not even just the people. We have so much vastness even on just on this one planet. Talk about trillions of inhabited planets in this vast universe. Every possible phase. You're caveman, you're primitive, you're this and that, you're advanced person. They will all survive death. Death is not an end. We're in our entry-level life here, folks. You can throw away any sort of rushing feeling like you need to have your family, you need to have the perfect job. Throw that all away and start getting that mind based in eternity. Okay, time is relatively real. You can have them both. You can still make that meeting that you need to at 10 o'clock and be punctual, as Jesus would. Jesus was punctual. He wasn't just like, time, let's throw that out the window. No, he was punctual. But he didn't die by it. He could live by it because it's, good. It's good. It's why it exists, so we can meet at 10 o'clock. But he didn't die by it. They will survive provided they manifest willingness to cooperate with their indwelling adjuster. Are you willing to cooperate? It tells you that eating that animal flesh is disgusting. You're doing terrible things to that creature. You're making it suffer in inhumane ways. Even if you say, oh, it's a grass-fed, he had a great, brilliant life. Yeah, well, what about the day they take the bat over the freaking thing and smack it in the head until it dies while it's mooing, or shoot it in the brain? What about that day? That wasn't a fun day. Animals try to avoid pain constantly. They're always on alert to try to avoid pain. Do you think it wants to go through that? So are you willing to cooperate on that level and break through that barrier? Same thing with, let's say your mind is completely engaged in horror or satanic worship or something like that. Are you willing to cooperate and break through the fact that all that violence and things like that, that's not the way to go? Or this negativity of critiquing your fellows or any of them, okay? There's 1,000,001 things that we need to be better about cooperating, because we're definitely not there right now. Self-included, okay? This is me included in all this, so reminders to myself. But here's the thing. It doesn't say cooperate this today or whatever, okay? You'd be better off if you did, but it's not a time thing, as we just pointed out. And exhibit a desire to find God. Now, I talk to so many people who are just very thrown off by that. That whole idea to find God is very much part of their fear because of their upbringing in the Catholic Church and having the nun beat them and parents forcing them to go to church or whatever. And they look at that and say, my willingness to find God it's at zero. But the thing is they might not even consciously know it because they might be having this faint flicker. So they might just be like, there's got to be a reason for me living, and I'm still driving towards something, and I know I need to be good, but I can't philosophically put it all together. Well, they could read the book and they'd be more philosophically in the way minded to put it all together. So that's what Revelation is for. But they still might not be conscious of this, right? They might be willing in a very strange way because of the fact that word symbol, it's that word symbol they don't like. It's not God. They're actually following God, many of them. A Buddhist, for instance, doesn't like that word symbol. An atheist doesn't like that word symbol, but a humanist doesn't like that word symbol. But what they're actually doing is following and finding that being. But they just have to do it in a way which is word symbol, neutral. And but then they'll have to go through mental gymnastics, because that word symbol is attached to a concept, and that concept is God the Father. And that's not just a word symbol. Okay, that concept is a reality. So they're going to want to do these mental gymnastics, and eventually they're going to have to deny God the Father. But that's what the mansion worlds are for, because then they'll have another chance and a more in a world that weren't programmed from birth to hate that word symbol. Geez, the forces of evil love Catholic nuns beating the crap out of their kids or whatever in the churches and the schools and this and that, because now all those kids are going to grow up as atheists. The forces of evil love that, and so they love when these religions can persist and have all of their divisions and all of their downfalls and foibles and things. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Amongst all great religions is a seed of truth. Unfortunately, the seed of truth is impossible to discern because of all the dogma and ritual attached to it. But here we go. And to attain divine perfection. That's the other thing. You have to think about that. You have to be willing to attain perfection. That means that you're not going... What is perfection? Perfection is exactly that. You're not going to have a misstep. You're not going to have, oh, geez, I went off the diet today. Or, oh, geez, the anger got the best of me and I flipped that guy off in traffic. Are you ready and willing to say, no, I'm going to be more poised, or I want to be? I am. I've decided that I want to do that, but I'm just letting it play out. And, you gotta just not beat yourself up over the pace, because that right there is not perfect, to beat yourself over the pace that you're going. So I'm nowhere near this, but I've decided that I want to. I have no question about what I desire and that I want to find God and attain divine perfection, even though I'm not even close to it. Even though but that's the thing, is that even though these desires be but the first faint flickers of the primitive comprehension of that true light which lights every man and woman who comes into the world. It's there, folks. It's there. You just got to connect and realign with it. All right, so that's the reading for today. Check out Urantia Art Club on Twitch. I'll be doing some streams on YouTube and stuff like that too, so I'll make a YouTube channel for that. And hope everybody's doing well.